Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Brooks here. In honor of the new Star Wars movie coming out this week, today is officially Star Wars Day here on No Bullshit. Yay! Now, don't get me wrong, I know by the title it may sound like I'm going to be a big hater here. You're probably thinking, Disney ruined Star Wars? What's up with that? Well, let me explain. This video is going to go over the good and the bad that's happened in Star Wars since Disney bought the property and rebooted it back in 2015. We're going to go over the last two movies, Star Wars The Force Awakens and Rogue One, and some other Star Wars stuff. And we're even going to do some speculating about The Last Jedi, which is the new movie coming out in a couple days. The Force is strong in this video, so let's go ahead and jump right into it.
It's true. All of it.
First of all, I want to start off by saying Disney bringing back Star Wars is an overall good. Star Wars has always held a special place in my heart. I remember watching all the original movies on VHS, and I even remember seeing the prequels in theaters as I grew up. And then I got a little older and saw the Plinkett reviews of the prequels and realized how awful they are. The original trilogy still holds up quite nicely though, except maybe some parts of the Return of the Jedi. Ewoks may have gone a little too far, especially when they defeated the Empire. Little bears fighting with sticks and stones, defeating the largest, most powerful force in the universe? What's up with that? Either the Ewoks got some magic force powers of their own, or the Empire's weakness really is Home Alone style traps in the woods. But I digress. Now let's flash forward back to 2015. Star Wars The Force Awakens comes out and supposedly redeems the whole franchise. And while I think that's fair to say, The Force Awakens is worlds better than the prequels, but it still had its own problems too. Mainly its lack of originality. Like it or not, The Force Awakens was a remake of the original Star Wars movie, now called A New Hope. Sure, they didn't call it a remake or reboot, even though many fans threw around the term soft reboot to try and church it up, but come on, let's be real. We all know it hits on most of the same plot points as the first movie. You got a droid with important plans on it, who's found by a junker living on a desert planet. They ride the Millennium Falcon to go meet up with the rebels or the Resistance, who then launches an attack on a giant planet-destroying superweapon. Besides a few minor tweaks, they are essentially the same movies. But I will say, those minor tweaks were well done and pretty interesting for The Force Awakens. Instead of a man-child Luke like the original, we get a hot chick named Rey. Well done, Disney. There's also a lot more energy and action in The Force Awakens, which I think was a good move for a movie in this modern era. The humor was pretty fun too, albeit a little bit much at times. I'm looking at you, Finn, funny guy.
Oh, there's an access tunnel that leads... Why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? I'm trying to come up with a plan.
Speaking of Finn, he didn't even really need to be in the movie. He was basically just there to make jokes with Han. Overall though, The Force Awakens was a worthy addition to the franchise. Sure, it was a remake that rehashed a lot of the old shit, and it was full of fan service, but it was also well done and fun to watch, which is what matters the most at the end of the day. Disney may have played it safe and they may have over-diversified the cast to the point of nausea, but the movie was still great. And most importantly, they successfully brought back Star Wars into 2015. But after The Force Awakens is when Disney really started to drop the ball.
Number 6. AT-AT dog costume. If you've already added that AT-AT bookend to your list but are still looking for more AT-AT merch, AT-AT dog costumes are available for purchase too. If you've always wanted your own AT-AT or AT-AT and you also have a dog, then really this is a dream come true.
While I can forgive the overly aggressive marketing and merchandising of Star Wars we've seen over the last 2 years, I mean, we've seen everything from Star Wars toasters, chairs, coffee mugs, and even Star Wars fruits and vegetables at the grocery store. Sure, this shit's gotten pretty ridiculous, but I could still look past all of it. But what's really chapped my ass about Star Wars merch is the shitty Star Wars video games we've seen lately. Namely Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2, which are basically the only Star Wars games we've gotten in this Disney era. And they're pretty sad. Both of these games had botched releases, mired with controversy and generally negative reactions from fans and press. Sure, you can say this isn't all on Disney, but they own the Star Wars brand now, and someone there is approving this hot garbage. And the Battlefront games aren't all bad, sure, especially if you like online shooting games. You probably love them, but that's a pretty specific, almost niche market if you ask me. What happened to all the other kinds of Star Wars video games? Like the single-player adventures I used to love. I don't think we've seen a good one since The Force Unleashed came out in 2008 and the sequel in 2010. My personal favorites are from even further back, such as Rogue Squadron series from early 2000s and Star Wars Bounty Hunter. These weren't just some of my favorite Star Wars games, these were some of my favorite games of all. Rogue Squadron let you fly and do dogfights in the air with various ships from the Star Wars franchise. franchise. In Bounty Hunter, you could play as fucking Jango Fett, a hunter with dual blasters and a jetpack and everything. Star Wars games used to be fun and have lots of variety. There were multiple games too, in different genres. Now, all we have is Battlefront, which is basically just like every other online shooter, but with Star Wars characters and skins. It's really Star Wars in name only. Sure, they try to add in some aspects from these classic Star Wars games I mentioned, but it's all too little too late, and it's very watered down. The flying missions in Battlefront are nowhere near as fun as Rogue Squadron. There's only like 3 different kinds of online battles you can do with them. There's no interesting story missions with multiple legs and its own narrative. And in the third-person shooting parts of Battlefront, they try and give you a jetpack that's kind of like the Bounty Hunter game, but it's weak as shit. It's almost just there for show. I mean, you can't really use it to get around much. And then there are very few times in Battlefront where you can be a Jedi like Luke Skywalker, kind of reminiscent of the Force Unleashed games, but this is watered down too. No cool lightsaber moves and only the most simplistic force powers. If Disney really wants to milk this Star Wars franchise, which apparently they do, they should be making more better video games with the brand, not fucking toasters and Star Wars lettuce. And as far as I'm concerned, Battlefront is a total fail. We need one-player stories. We need to be Jedis and bounty hunters and fly ships around the galaxy. We need video games with single-player campaigns, which Battlefront completely skipped on the first one. And sure, Battlefront 2 added a campaign, but it just seems shoehorned in and short and very anticlimactic. The story's weak. Not even this hot Indian chick could save it. But goddammit, she is beautiful, so I'll give them points for that. We got Rey and we got this chick in Star Wars now, so I'll give Disney credit for having some hot chicks.
Sheila! Come in, Soma! Go to crowd!
Now, I could go all day about how lackluster the Star Wars games have become, but let's move on to the real elephant in the room. The movie Rogue One, a Star Wars story. The movie that probably should have never been made. If you thought The Force Awakens had a lot of fan service, well, Rogue One is all fan service. There's no life or originality to this movie at all. Sure, it's got some good graphics and a wicked action scene at the end, but this all falls pretty flat when the characters are boring, sad, and just generally depressing. On top of that, the story is how this group finds the plans to a Death Star, and spoilers, they all die at the end. It's basically a fucking pointless movie. It tells us nothing new, and it's just kind of squeezed in between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. It's a story no one really wanted to see. It's just bland, empty fan service. They throw a Jedi in there, the Death Star, and Vader at the end. Hell, they even add the AT-AT walkers in for no reason, in a situation that doesn't even make sense to have them. Not to mention this movie doesn't stand by itself at all, not even in the slightest. If Rogue One wasn't connected to Star Wars, it wouldn't have made any sense at all, and no one would have gone to see it. It would have just been a boring, droll action movie with no likable characters to get invested in. Needless to say, Rogue One was a big misstep for Star Wars last year, and it certainly has me worried about the future of the standalone Star Wars movies. On top of that, if you followed the Hollywood news, you may have heard the next standalone movie is having production problems itself. Solo, the Han Solo origin story, is set to come out next year, and well, Disney famously fired their original directors in the middle of the production, and now they've got Ron Howard coming in to take over, and well, I'm not too hopeful about this one either.
And I need help.
Finally, let's get to episode 8, The Last Jedi. It's coming out this week and it looks like it could be great. From the trailer and the hype around it, I could say it's likely to be a good addition to the sequel trilogy. And I truly hope it does well and brings Star Wars back to its deserved glory. Let's just pray they stray away from all the fan service the previous movies have hinged on so much. And I hope they have some original ideas and plot points in there too. Because if this movie just ends up being a remake of The Empire Strikes Back, then I'm gonna be really pissed. While I could accept the soft reboot format of The Force Awakens, at the time it made sense to reintroduce everything. Retreading old ground wasn't the end of the world there, but with this next one, with The Last Jedi, we better see something new and different. And by the looks of it, we might.
Let the past die. Kill it.
all in all, Disney bringing back Star Wars has been a bit of a mixed bag, sure, but overall I'd still say I'm glad that they at least brought it back to life. Sure, Disney ruined many things with it, like over-merchandising and too much fan service and making shitty one-off stories no one cares about, and crappy video games. But there's a bright side to it too. Star Wars isn't completely ruined yet, but if Disney doesn't take some of these notes to heart, it could go downhill fast. And please make some better Star Wars video games, Disney. I know you can do it. Make a Kingdom of Hearts with the Star Wars universe. People would eat that shit up. Or make a Star Wars version of Grand Theft Auto, an open world kind of thing. Do something. Anything is better than the last 2 Battlefront games. What do you guys think? Is Disney slowly ruining Star Wars? Was The Force Awakens a shitty remake? Or was it a lot of fun? And what the fuck happened with Rogue One? And will The Last Jedi be as amazing as the trailer looks? Comment your thoughts below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. See y'all next time.